Okay, guys, this is going to be the medieval tower demo that I talked about the other day. We're gonna go over the basics of ArrayMesh and Nanomesh, and we're going to do some vines as well. Just like the World Machine demo, this will be a pretty high-level overview. I can't go through every single setting. Give you the basics. And then I'll give you some supplemental materials on top of that for you to dig into. And once you guys start using this stuff, you can ask questions as well. So this is just our default ZBrush open here. And to start off with, we need a simple cube. So to do that, we're going to click on Polymesh 3D, go to Initialize, and just click QCube with the default settings. And that will give us a cube. Once we draw that out, and click Edit. Frame that up by hitting F. I'm going to turn your floor on so we can see what direction our normals are facing. So you can see here that we have this green line which indicates Y, this blue line which is X. It should be a red line. You can kind of see it right here, barely. And that's our Z. So we want to line up so our Z-axis is pointing away from us, like this. You can see the red line here and the blue line here. I'm going to apply just the matte cap gray shader to this, and we'll turn our polyframe on. So polyframing will show you the edges and points or object here. So we're going to turn this box into a brick shape first. So this is what's going to be called proxy modeling. So we're going to make a basic shape, then we're going to duplicate it with our array, and then we're going to sculpt it a little bit, and we're going to use a nanomesh on top of that. So to get this box into a brick shape, we're going to click the Move tool, which will put us into transpose. I'm going to post another video where transpose is explained, because it's a very basic function of ZBrush, but a lot of people don't use it, so I'll post that later on. But basically, when you're in transpose, these little circles here and here are going to align to that axis. So if I wanted to align to my y-axis, click here, and it's going to go straight up. Same with these. So I want to move this on the X. So if I hold down the Shift key and move, it's going to constrain it and move it in this direction. So we'll get a shape kind of like a brick. We're going to do the same thing for the Z. Scale it in a little bit. And there's our simple brick. Very easy. So I'm going to click back on Draw. We'll have our brick, and now we're going to go into the ArrayMesh. So to open up ArrayMesh, you click the ArrayMesh drop-down tools, and we're going to click ArrayMesh. And like in class, I said this is very important with this technique that I'm going to use, that you click this lock position and lock size. It just basically makes it so it locks your original in place, so when we start transposing it, it applies to this new ArrayMesh object. So we're going to set our repeats up at first, just an arbitrary number, doesn't matter. I'll just say 22. And since we're going to do a round type of tower, like a medieval tower, we're going to want our bricks to go 360 degrees to complete a full circle. And you'll see them like this. And this is what you'll get before you actually move your base object. So to move the base objects, again, I'm just going to click on the Move tool and drag this line out, and we're going to pull these guys out from the X. And you're going to see that I made a mistake. So obviously this isn't moving, it's stretching the object. So let's go back and see what I'm doing wrong. So it looks like was pulling on the wrong axis here. So I'm going to click this white dot, which is going to center our transpose tool, get back to that axis. So let's see here. What we're going to do. Click and drag and move. So that's actually good that I made that mistake. You can see that if I click and drag this circle here in the transpose, it's just going to skew our object. That blue square is our actual object, so you can see just skewing it and scaling it and moving it around. So you can see now that I'm clicking this center circle, it's moving our object. So we want to just move it straight out on the Z-axis. So if holding down Shift will constrain it to that axis. So we're going to pull it out, and there we go. So there's our first row of bricks. Very simple. So what we're going to do next is under our ArrayMesh, we're going to click Append New. And what that's going to do is take this stage, this object that we see here, and it's going to make it like a temporary object made up of this array. So we're going to click Append New, and you'll see it says Transform Stage 2 and 1. So this is our stage 1, this single rotation. Now stage 2, we are going to offset this because our tower is going to be tall. So it's out here. And this takes a little bit of just give and take to see how far you want to make this. I'll just make it about that tall. And then we're going to get our repeats up. So we want these objects to kind of overlay each other just a little bit, or at least touch. So we'll get the repeat to, we'll just say about here. See how tall we're at. So now we're at about this height. And you'll just have to play around with these depending on what exactly you want out of your tower. And we want a rotation because we want these bricks to overlap as well. So we're going to click Rotate. And then again, go up to 360. Now we've got a beautiful stone column. Very quickly and very easily. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our main object, which you can still see it's down here, and we're going to sculpt it a little bit. So I'm going to turn the ArrayMesh off now. Click on Draw, so we go into our sculpting. We're just going to do a very basic stone here. There's lots of tutorials online on how to sculpt rock and etc. And if you guys want me to show you how to do rock in class, we can go over that. But this is not a rock sculpting tutorial. So I'm just going to do a real quick one here. So I'm going to divide this box up a couple times. Then I'm going to go down to Surface. Here's our box. And I'm just going to crank this noise scale way up. Mess around with these just to make it, give it a kind of an uneven breakup here. And click OK. And you'll see that it's applied to our brick. But our brick is only right now 386 polys. So when I put this to apply to mesh, it's just going to mess it up for us. Make it kind of lumpy, which is exactly what we want. And I'm going to divide it again and hit noise again. Click edit, and I'm just going to offset the X just so we have a different shape of noise. And we mess around with these a little bit. And hit OK. And we're going to apply that again. So now we've just kind of got a little bit more of a lumpy mess here. And I'm going to divide it again. And we're going to do this again. This time we're going to bring the scale down or up just a bit. Kind of push the shape, give it some craziness. So I'm going to apply this down. Now we've got a nice messed up brick, this is exactly what we want for now. So I'm going to divide this one more time. and I'm going to just sculpt on it real quick. Just some tips when you're sculpting rock. A good brush for that is your trim dynamic, which is if you bring up your brush palette, just press T and D, and you're going to get your trim brush out here. And I'm just going to go over this really fast, just kind of mess up the surface, some of this softness out of it. And like I said, this is just for demonstration purposes. You'd obviously want to make a much better brick than I'm making right now. But I could do 2 or 3 hours just on making brick and rock, which we're not going to do. Another good brush is the clay tubes. So at this point, we're pretty good, but I'm going to want to start deforming the surface quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is go to Dynamesh, because this is going to spread an even topology. Right now you can see our topology is kind of junk. So when I click Dynamesh, it's going to ask about these multiple subdivisions. I'm just going to say no, and we're going to get this, which is a little bit too low res, so I'll undo that, drag this resolution slider up a little bit. It's going to ask the same thing, and that's pretty good as far as resolution goes. Yeah, this will work. So I'm just going to knock back in some of this area that we lost. Let's move it back. Just going to do a really quick sculpting job here. You can hold down your Alt key and it'll go into negative, and you can knock some of the surface away. Let's see. Let's look at the bottom here. We really want to make this kind of a nondescript surface because it's going to be multiplied quite a bit. Knock back some of this edging here. Smooth it out. Another brush that I use all the time is the H polish, which will give you a lot more hard edge here. This is bothering me, so I'm going to go back to the clay tubes and bring this out again. And I'm re-dynameshing by just holding Control and dragging, and that's just bringing our topology back. You can see it's even in and out again. Go back to my polish brush here. Polish some of this out. And that looks pretty good for now. So I'm going to unclick Dynamesh, and then we're going to go back to our ArrayMesh and zoom out. Because remember, our array is still active. I'm going to click this, and boom. There is a tower with a lot of bricks. So you can see, since I've changed my shape, our scale is off a little bit, so I can either increase the repeats or I can change the scale. So I'm just going to repeat this up. So I'm going to go back to stage 1, which is just this initial ring, and I'm going to crank the repeats up a bit. You can see it's bringing that space down. So now I'm going to go up to stage 2, and we've got this gap here, so I want to increase the repeats on our vertical array as well. Now we've got this great looking tower. So I think this might be a little too tall, so what we're going to do is change this Y offset. We're going to bring it down, get smaller. Now when I do that, I'm going to have to change the repeats as well because it's just smashing all of our bricks. So go to the repeats, and I'll bring these down as well till we get just to where the gap is closed, which is right there. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so at this point, it's probably a good idea to save. Go in here and find our folder, this tower 1, save that. Okay, so that's our ArrayMesh, the basics of the ArrayMesh. Obviously, there's a lot of other settings in here that I didn't touch, but typically you won't mess around with much of this. Your repeats and your offset scale pivot, these are the things you'll use the most, and then your append. I will post some other videos about ArrayMesh if you really want to dive into it, and some of the particulars of patterning and mirroring and stuff like that, or you can ask me questions about it later. So now that we're done with our ArrayMesh, we want to make this a Nanomesh so we can add some variation to our bricks here, because right now they're way too even and computery. So I'm going to hit Convert to Nanomesh. This is going to take a minute. And what this is going to do is allow us to edit this in Nanomesh mode, which is ready to go. That was really fast. So now under ArrayMesh is the dropdown for Nanomesh, which is here. And now we're going to zoom in and we're going to start messing with these values. You can see that the Nanomesh is basically placed in this intermediate polygon. It's kind of like a retainer wall, I guess you would call it. Just so that these bricks are being grown off of. So we're going to mess with everything here. So we're going to go into our width and change that. And each one of these parameters that we change, we're going to add variance, some variation to. You can see it's starting to make our surface uneven. So we're going to go to length, add some variation with that. That might be a bit too much. Length down. Yeah, that's too much. So we're going to pull these way back. Don't want too much length variation because it's going to cause a gap. That's good. So we're going to go ahead into our offset. Literally, I'm just messing around with just some different shapes here just to get it so it's an uneven, varied surface. We don't want X rotation. I think we're going to want Y rotation. Yeah, Y rotation is the one we want, so we'll add some variance to that. Not too much. Zoom out here and see what it looks like. Yeah, getting there. And we'll add some Z rotation as well, which will make it roll around itself. Add some variation there. 19 is too much. Yeah, these sliders are very sensitive, so just be aware of that. This is the time where you're just going to literally mess around and find something that looks good. It's already looking great as far as getting some variation and things in there. What else do we want to do? Maybe some Y offset. Help it out a bit. This is basically going to make them shift up and down. Yeah, there we go. I think this needs to be a lot less. Yeah, there we go. Bring this down. I think maybe our width variance is too high as well. Yeah. Bring some of these down. And you can also do a random seed and a random distribution, which this is going to randomly distribute across the surface. Which this can work depending on how random you want to get things. Like if this was going to be like an old tower or something, I guess you could probably get away with that. Having all these like little gaps and stuff in there. But I'm not going to do it for this. This is pretty good. Let's take a look at, maybe look at our Y rotation. Our Y rotation probably should be up pretty high with a really big variance, and this is going to randomize our surface a lot. Bring it down just a tad. Basically what this is doing is just adding variance to all the different axes. There we go. That looks good. Yeah. Pretty darn good. That's great. Let's see what we can do here. I I guess we can add some size. I'm not sure if we want to do that. Let's give it a try. Yeah, size is just a little bit of size just to change our scale. Let's change this to 1.1. 5. There we go. Getting there. Yeah, it's pretty good. Good. Bam. There is our stone column. Yeah. Pretty amazing how fast you can get to this. So I'm going to save this tower 2. And we're going to add some vines to this bad boy. So from this point, what we can do, so right now, this is, it's called BPR Geo. So it's not really geometry. If I hit polyframes, you can't, there's nothing there because it's basically GPU display. So depending on what you're going to want to do with this in your project, you could bake this out as pure geo. You could turn it into Dynamesh and then put in a proxy object and project onto it. So I can show, I think that process is probably best to show in class because it's pretty in-depth and you will have major questions about it. So for now, I'm just going to convert this just to geo, and this is going to convert it to just a typical ZBrush object. And you can see our active points jumped up quite a bit. So now we have 17 million points in here, which is way too much to use. So what you could do is decimate this, or you could Dynamesh it, both of which, if I did that right now, it will take a long time to process it, and I don't want to have you guys have to sit there and wait through it. But the process would be you just click the Dynamesh, and it Dynameshes it. You know what? Let's just give it a shot. I'll just do a really Dynamesh here. So, got our object, and our subtool palette. It's right there, and we're just going to click Dynamesh. See what happens. And this is typically what you would do. You would Dynamesh or you would decimate this, and then project it down on some low-res geo. It just really depends on how you want to use it, whether it's in a game engine or not. I mean, 17 million polygons really isn't that much. I've had things that are much higher than that. Let's see what the Dynamesh gives us. And remember, when we use Dynamesh, it's going to take all of this, all these gaps, everything, and it's going to put them into one gigantic piece of geo. So it's going to take a while to do that. Okay, we're back. The Dynamesh failed because it was just way too big. So what I think I'm going to do now is decimate this. So under your Z plugins, I'm going to dock this over here. So under Z plugins, you have this thing called Decimation Master, and basically you just pre-process it, which it'll go through and process this object. It's going to analyze it, and what Decimation Master will do will just basically reduce the polygon count dramatically. But it's going to turn the topology into crap, which we don't really care at this point, because the geo's already pretty messed up. So I'm going to let this decimate and get back in just a second. Okay, we are back, and the pre-processing is done. This may take quite some time. I think it took about 5 minutes for me. So once the pre-process is done, you can click this button that says Decimate Current. You can see I think we lost our view here. Get back. So right now we're at 17 million polygons. So if we click Decimate Current, so percentage of decimation 20%, should get us there. So let's give it a shot. So you can say it's reading the mesh file and it's going to calculate again. This may seem like a long process, but just imagine if you were trying to do these bricks one by one or anything like that. It does take a little bit of time, but still works. So now we are down to 3 million polygons with relatively no change in the surface at all. So this works nice. We're going to go from there. I can show you the Dynamesh reprojection process in class, but that's not what we're doing in this tutorial. Going over Array and Dynamesh, or Array and Nanomesh. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create some vines to crawl over this bad boy. So ZBrush comes with a rope insert mesh brush, I believe. Let's see here if I can find it. Insert ring, sphere, cylinder, curve, and where is the rope? So we've got our tower here. Had to pause the video for a second to find this brush. I will upload this brush into the support files for this demonstration on Trello. It's from an artist called Bad King, which if you have not been to his site, go to it and download everything. He's got some great stuff there. So this rope brush, it's basically just an insert mesh brush, curve brush, like I had showed you in class the other day. I can show you how to make an insert mesh brush, but there's so much documentation out there. It's really incredibly easy. I'll just show you real quick, just for reference for you guys. So I'm gonna click off of our tower here and just make something new. What should we do for an insert mesh? Let's make a flower. So we're gonna add some vines to this, and then we're gonna put some flowers on it. So to do this, I'm just going off the top of my head here, so bear with me. I'm going to make mistakes. Let's start off with, what should we do? Let's just start off with a cube again. So exciting. And I'm going to use the Z modeler brush for this. And let's see. Now I'm going to go through this fast. I'm not going to explain every single step because again, this isn't a flower video. I'm just making an insert mesh brush for you guys to see how I would do it. Let's see here, what do I want to do? Let's mask these off. Just gonna make a quick petal. Let's see. Search some edge loops here. Our move brush. Let's turn on symmetry. Let's make just a generic leaf, petal, or whatever kind of shape here. Too much. Smooth intensity down. Grab this, move it in. Let's give ourselves something. This. Okay, there's our super generic flower petal. Go up here, divide this up. Good. When you're dealing with these array meshes, you want to try to make sure the objects you're arraying are pretty low res, or at least as low res as you can get them. And then worry about the shape when you start dynameshing or reprojecting as far as detail, shape. And I'm not using any dynamesh on this. I'm just going to have a straight poly object. All right, there's our leaf. Let's make a flower. I'm going to delete subdivisions. ArrayMesh, open it up. Rotate it. And lock position and size. Turn my symmetry off. Grab our center here. Let's move it back. Move our repeats up. Say, move it back in a little bit. Good. We're going to add some rotation on the X. Rotate this off of this axis. There we go. That was just me rotating the leaf itself instead of using the array. I might want to maybe bend this a bit, so let's take a look at our object. Do some rotation. Let's see here. Here. Some rotation that way. Our move brush. Go ahead and just move this going here. Oh, help if I was on the brush. And just give it some shape. And you see it's getting a little bit wonky there, but that's okay. It'll actually make it look better. I'm going to raise this side up so we can try to overlap this a bit. And turn our array back on, see what we get. Looks good, there's our flower. Probably want to maybe move this out and rotate it so we get some overlap. Not that much. And this way. Boom, good enough. So we're going to turn this into an insert mesh. So you can see that my axis has gotten a little bit messed up here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off extrude. At the bottom of the array mesh, it's called make mesh. So I'm going to make mesh, and that just baked our object down. So to get this back to center, I can move it around and do all that stuff, but let's just do something else that's Good trick. There's this button called Unify under the Deformation tab. If we click that, it's going to put it dead center. Simple as that, so you don't have to mess around with it. For a flower, no, I think that's good. Let's just we'll add a center here with just a sphere. So we'll go up to our subtools, append, and we'll just grab a sphere. And take the sphere, we'll scale it down. Yoink. Pull it down. Get it back into the center. Maybe raise it up a little bit. And let's squish it. Axis here. Going to click move to squish it down. Good. I'm going to move it. More. There is our incredibly awesome generic flower. So to make this an insert mesh brush, I'm going to align it to the axis that I want it to project onto from the normal. Then I'm going to go to the brush palette over here, and I'm going to create an insert mesh brush. And it's going to say is not a brush. You want to pin it. We're just going to make new. Oh, that was not good. So you can see it just made a circle. It's because I haven't merged these subtools together. So let's merge these together and try this again. I'm going to create insert mesh. It's going to say, do you want to append? We'll just say new. And now you can see our icon. We have our insert mesh. So now if I start dragging this out, we have lots and lots and lots and lots of flowers. Great. Looks good. Let's go back to our tower. So zoom out. So we've got our tower here. And we've got our rope brush. And we are going to drag some vines along this object. So we can see what we got here. So it's pretty good. You can see it's sticking to the rocks nice, really nice. You can see it doesn't look very vine-like because it's the same width the whole time. We can change that. We will go under our brush palette. Let's find our modifiers. Wait, stroke palette. Find our modifiers. So we have curve, curve mode, functions, and modifiers. This is under your stroke palette. You'll see it up here if you don't have it docked. Under curve modifiers, we're going to click size, which is going to add a fall off to our curve. And this fall off, you can see it's going from very small to large. We need to flip that. So we're going to flip it horizontally. And then we're going to grab the end of our curve and click. And now you can see we've got this great looking vine. So to make another vine, you just click on the object that you're growing things on and go again. And it's taking a little bit of time to process because this is still pretty high res, so it's got to calculate where it's going to grow. So let's zoom out here. I'm going to want a really long, twisty one to go up the side. And once this one grows, what we're going to do is you can see when this is done growing along the tower that it's masked off. So I want to split this off into its own subtool. So to do that, we're going to click this split unmask points. This is under your subtool palette. So we'll click split unmasked points, and that's going to split this off. We'll take a second here. Now we've got just this vine. So what we want to do with this vine is add our flower. So to do that, we're going to click under our Nanomesh, and you're going to see that there's nothing there. So we have to turn the insert mesh brush, our flower insert mesh brush, into a Nanomesh. And to do that, go back to our brush palette. You're going to see that this is selected now, or highlighted, create Nanomesh brush. We now have a Nanomesh. So why don't we have it over here? It's because we haven't dragged it out onto the surface yet. So we need to switch to our Z-modeler brush, which is already done for us, and you're going to see, if I zoom way in here, and it says insert Nanomesh on poly. We want it on, not just on the poly, we want it everywhere. So we're going to click here, find our, I may need to zoom in even more. Yeah, we need to zoom in because we need to find just a poly, so I can do a poly action. So now we're rolled over a polygon, so we want to click on all polygons and then click and drag. And we're going to get our flower. Click, keep clicking and dragging. And now we've got our Nanomesh. So you can see they're way too small right now. We can't even really see them at a distance. So the first thing we're going to do is crank up our size. We're going to get some big flowers on here. Let's go crazy. We'll go even bigger. Or maybe we won't go bigger. You can also change the size of your insert mesh, but I'm not going to go back and do that. So let's change the width and height to make it bigger. And we're going to do a random distribution this time instead of everywhere. So our random distribution, put it just scattered over our geo. Something like that. And we're going to move this, make this a little bit smaller. Again, let's see, do we want more than that? Why not? Let's just add some more. So this is almost starting to look like ivy. There we go. Now you've got a vine with flowers. Really fast and really easy. So once you're happy with this, remember you go to geometry, convert BPR to geo, and this will make a geometry. And it's baked into its own subtool again, which you can go back here. You can see there's our subtool. So that is it. That is our overview. Cover Nanomesh, ArrayMesh, how to make an insert mesh. And the insert mesh brush that I use for this vine is the rope, and I will post that again on the Trello board. Post any questions or comments or anything, and there we go. I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.